We have been talking a lot on this show recently about the government's decision to start greenlighting oil wells again in the Gulf of Mexico after the BP disaster last year. That is news that matters to everyone in America, of course, but if you live in a town where people depend on oil rigs for jobs, then you've got a very particular interest in those decisions. I mean, if you're a roughneck in Bay Minette or Pearlington or Eunice or Corpus Christi, government decisions about new drilling can mean the difference between shipping out for real work on a real rig or counting on an oil spill relief check from BP. You want to get back to doing what you do, which is complicated, difficult, dangerous work. When the U.S. Interior Department announced recently that it had granted the first new permit for deepwater drilling in the Gulf since the BP oil disaster last year, hometown papers in oil country rejoiced. From the New Orleans Times-Picayune, permit is an important step on drilling. Quote, independent scientists detailed months ago how most drilling could safely resume. From the Biloxi Sun-Herald, America needs energy and workers need jobs. From the Mobile Press-Register, deepwater drilling is important to coast and nation. They noted that the government gave out the permit because, quote, Noble Energy had proven it could drill safely in a post-BP spill environment, which would be awesome if we all believed it. That said, a report given to the Interior Department last week reveals that what America thought was the big backup plan in case an oil well goes apocalyptic is not really a backup plan at all. This is a blowout preventer, a piece of safety equipment that sits at the top of an oil well. If pressure from under the seafloor rises into the well, if the well starts to blow out, then the blowout preventer is supposed to seal the well off to keep the pressure and the oil in. These blowout preventers are required on every deepwater rig in the Gulf of Mexico, and that is scary because it turns out that these blowout preventers are flawed. They are flawed in a way that such a way that the very accidents they're supposed to stop from becoming disasters, those very same accidents can render them inoperable, can just take them out so they can't do their jobs. We knew that things could go wrong with blowout preventers. What we did not know is that if things didn't go wrong with them, they still might not work. That by design, some blowouts will just still happen. We'll just render the blowout preventers pointless. In other words, there is no fail-safe. If this thing here is the backup plan, it means there is no backup plan. We did not know that before last week's report, but we know it now. The Interior Department posted that report on the website Wednesday of last week. The next day, they issued the 5th new deepwater drilling permit since the BP oil disaster. There's the press release. And the day after that, the 6th new permit for a well 2,000 feet deeper than the BP Deepwater Horizon. By this time, people like us, are asking all about these permits for wells where the backup plan if something goes wrong is something we know we can't count on. After the first 5 permits were announced using essentially the same language, in the press release for the 6th permit, the oil agency director, Michael Bromwich, said this, quote, some say we are now proceeding too quickly. Some say we are still proceeding too slowly. The truth is we are proceeding as quickly as our resources allow to approve permit applications that satisfy our rigorous safety and environmental standards. We will continue to do so. Mr. Bromwich apparently meant what he said about keeping on, because yesterday the government handed out another new deepwater drilling permit with an assurance from Mr. Bromwich that they are, quote, proceeding as quickly as our resources allow to properly regulate offshore oil and gas operations in the most safe and environmentally responsible manner. We do hope to have Mr. Bromwich as a guest on this show soon to talk to him more about what those assurances mean to him. But lately, even the fairly rah-rah hometown papers of oil country seem to be realizing that this thing with the blowout preventers could be a real problem. The Times-Picayune today saying the industry and government should, quote, learn from the problems inside BP's blowout preventer and make adjustments if necessary. And the Mobile Press-Register's editorial page this week saying, quote, clearly further study is needed to make sure that the nation doesn't experience another catastrophe like the BP spill. Don't take it from me, take it from them. Joining us now is Frances Coleman, editorial page editor for the Mobile Press-Register in Alabama. Ms. Coleman, thank you very much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Your paper in the past has taken a real encouraging stance toward offshore drilling. I mean, particularly given the economic impact it has in coastal Alabama. And I don't think we need to debate the big picture of drilling here, but I do want to hear from you how important you have felt this new report is about the blowout preventers.
It is important, Rachel. It shows that there are a lot of concerns, that we have a lot to learn still about drilling safety and the offshore drilling industry as a whole, it is not something we don't believe that should stop offshore drilling. And in fact, as you well know, the country demands the oil that we produce from the Gulf of Mexico. So that's not going to happen, but it shows that some investigation and some study are needed so that these blowout preventers do work as they're supposed to.
How much do you think the idea of the blowout preventer, for people who live in the region where drilling is happening, how much do you think the blowout preventer idea has been key to people's sense of safety about those rigs? How much has it really reassured people as that, in terms of it specifically as one safety device? Obviously, there's a lot of safety measures, but the industry really brags on the capacity of those preventers.
I think a lot of people were genuinely surprised when the Deepwater Horizon blew up that, oh my God, the blowout preventer didn't work. That was supposed to be the last thing that stood between us and a disaster of the magnitude that did happen. So that was disturbing, even appalling. But you have to keep in mind, anyone should keep in mind, that's the very last thing that is supposed to stand between the kind of disaster that happened. A lot of other things should not have happened as well, and all of it has to be fixed so that we can have a safe drilling environment.
Absolutely, and well put, I would say. For the BP disaster specifically, Transocean and BP are among the companies that are getting the first new permits for new deep water drilling. Do you feel like there is local concern that those companies in particular should get extra scrutiny because of what happened on their watch with their equipment at Deepwater Horizon?
Well, BP does not have a lot of best friends in this area right now, but on the other hand, I don't think that anyone thinks that all of the executives of BP sat around a board table last year and said, I know what we'll do. We'll have a big explosion and a big disaster. So it's not in their interest either to have such a terrible thing happen because it's expensive for them. And of course, it's a dreadful thing for us on the coast. So like them or hate them, they are what they are.
When there is a drilling moratorium, the drilling industry and its workers take the first economic hit, obviously. But when there's a big spill, everybody who lives in the coastal region around drilling sites and the region itself physically is in danger. How do you think that balances out politically in a place like Mobile with people wanting where they live to be safe, but also wanting those jobs there? What's that balance like?
We have lived with offshore drilling for so long, for however long they've been drilling offshore, that it's not really an us or them. I have friends who work offshore. If you lived here, you would too. You might have family members. So it's not an us or them. It's an us versus them. It is all of us in this region, knowing that that's a large part of our economy, and also knowing that it's a very dangerous operation, a very dangerous industry, and when things go wrong, there are terrible consequences.
Frances Coleman, editorial page editor for the Mobile Press Register in Alabama. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show to talk with us.